Hey everyone, welcome to another top 5 countdown video. I am your little host, Mike B, and today we're going to be talking about a top 5 list that also coincides with a playlist I have on my little channel here. So if you want to go check that out now or after the video, this is just going to be kind of a summarized top 5 and what I think are the top 5 rookie mistakes to make while you're getting into military surplus firearm collecting. Now, if you have watched the series, some of these are going to be familiar to you. I have done all of these on the list, so that's how I know that it's not a good thing and live and learn. So hopefully you can skip doing at least one or two of these things by having educated yourself on my mistakes and errors and all that stuff. So the number 5 mistake, we'll start out, is not spending money on or time on research and just diving in. You are not going to be successful. It's not going to be that fun, especially with today's prices and availability. You know, the price is going up, the availability going down. You're really not going to have a good, fun time as much when you keep making really bad decisions because you just didn't want to spend money first on good research materials. Now, I did make a video using both of these references. These are kind of overview references and stuff like that. These are good places to start if you don't know exactly what you want to get into, but you're kind of, intrigued and all that stuff. And you can go watch that video on that whole episode of why these are good little resources. But this is just an example of doing that and taking the time to actually do research too. I've got a sub-series within that series called How to Do Research and Why It's Important. I kind of go over a little bit how to do research, like using a physical item like this, like a book, or going online. I'll be doing that pretty soon. So by the time you see this, it'll probably be done. And anyway, that is the number 5 biggest mistake that I see, and I have done, and I've seen this with a lot of people, especially recently. They play a video game or they see something in a movie and it's just bam, they just jump right into it without actually spending the time or money on research materials and learning how to do research. That's, I guess, the biggest one. So that'll be number 5 on our list. We'll move on to number 4 now. Number 4 on our list is, again, something I've been guilty of and trying to step away from it in the past few years, is acting like you know everything when you actually don't know anything. The older you get, the more you realize that you don't know a damn thing. And I'm not old and wise, I'm only 30. So I'm not saying, oh, gosh darn kids, remember when I was that age? No, I still do it once in a while. I think everybody's guilty of it, but I do see it more often with younger people. So when you're in your teens and your early 20s, especially with online culture today, it's for some reason encouraged and I guess applauded and all that stuff to know everything about everything in a particular subject, to be an expert, even if you don't know what you're talking about. Now, all this does is it just prohibits you from actually learning the actual facts, because if you're talking to somebody that does know more than you, which quite a few people do, and you're not listening to them, you're just saying, oh yeah, I know, and then I know this, and this, and this. It's like, okay, well, you can have a discussion about that, but it's not about what you know, it's about what you don't know, which is a lot more than what you do know. I don't know how to reiterate this anymore, but anyway, I used to do this a lot, and once you hit a point, you're like, okay, well, maybe I should just shut the fuck up and listen. Maybe I should just do that, and you actually end up learning a lot more that you would have otherwise just kind of saying, oh, I know. And this kind of goes along with doing research as well, too. So if you do research and you've put an hour or two into researching, Argentine 1891 Mauser rifles, and you put 2 hours into Swedish M96 Mauser rifles, you're not an expert, you're far from it. But I've seen a lot of people, and I've done this, is I learn one thing about something and then I profess like I'm an expert on the subject. Well, go check out Paul Harrell's How to Spot a Fake Expert video. You'll see me in my late teens and early 20s, and you'll see a lot of yourselves, your friends, and possibly your younger selves as well. So that's the number 4 mistake on the list that I see a lot and I was very guilty of. Trust me, you learn a lot more if you admit that you don't know anything. So we'll move on to number 3 now. Number 3 is a mistake that I made a couple times, but it's really a hard one to kind of live with, and most people have done it. It's being impulsive and not really taking the time to relax and know exactly what you're looking at, and getting screwed, or technically screwing yourself, on something that you thought was one thing, but it's actually not what it appears. If you go and check out the video in my series and you see this guy, this nice number 1 Mark III as the thumbnail, check out that story. It's a true story, happened, and it has something to do with the number 1 Mark III, which is why that's the thumbnail. Anyway, you need to relax. This goes along with doing research and, again, acknowledging that you don't know everything. If you see something that you're not 100% sure about and you're new to the hobby, my best advice to you is to walk away until you know exactly what you're looking at and you're at that level. Now, these prices might skyrocket in the next few years. They might actually go down. Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. Bottom line is, they'll still be around. There's plenty of military surplus rifles in the country. They're not, I mean, I'm talking about the US. I know I have a lot of foreign viewers that are like, well, up here in Canada, you can get an SCT-40 for $300. Well, get an FAL or a G3, and then we'll talk about who can get what for a better price. Anyway, just little friendly competitors to our America's, or, the United States hat. Anyway, digress there. You should definitely just walk away if you don't know what you're looking at. One of my Patreon supporters had a fun story with kind of impulse buying something recently, and I kind of gave him some shit about it, so did everyone else. But in the end, that was a pretty cheap lesson for him to learn. So, but we did talk about it, and it's like, hey, I've made worse mistakes than that. He got excited and was like, oh man, it's a great deal on this, which, can really come back to bite you in the ass, because there are people out there who will take advantage of that. And if they see you acting like you know everything, and they can tell you haven't done a lot of research, and that you're being impulsive and you're really excited, you're probably going to get screwed. Just a little words of wisdom there, through experience, mind you. So that'll be number 3 on our list. Relax and don't buy stuff just on impulse, just to buy it. So this number 2 is a very common mistake. I was guilty of it for a while, and then I had somebody just kind of be an asshole to me, but it was definitely warranted, and it clicked. It's like, this is going to be regarding asking really like easy to answer redundant questions and not taking the time at all to look it up on your own. It kind of coincides with number 5, but this gets more annoying because we're going to just use forums for an example, right? Gun boards. That's one site. I mean, there's just plenty of other sites, ar15.com. If you collect cars, forums and all that stuff. And you'll notice over time, you see the same damn question. People with like 2 posts come on. And at that point, you can just use Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use and type in, what is a Luger worth? Or what companies manufactured the Luger? Or who made the Colt 1917? It's not a trick question. There was 2 companies, and it was technically called the model of 1917. But all this stuff will pop up. What I don't understand is we've got literally almost all of the world's knowledge, a plethora of knowledge and information right at our fingertips. I mean, the thing that I'm filming this video on has access to endless information. I mean, it's insane. And people just still, they don't want to learn how to do their own research. They just expect somebody else that has done it to just, share all their hard-earned work for free. And it gets old. I mean, some people don't mind sharing it, but it gets old answering the same damn question when it's really easy to answer. Now, I did this a couple times early on, and then it was made very clear that I should definitely try to exhaust every single bit of research resource that I can possibly find, and then say, hey, I couldn't find anything. Can somebody point me in the right direction? This whole doing research thing, the reason it's a sub-series in that series is because it's the old adage of give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for the rest of his life. If you just give somebody an answer and they don't want to do their own research, they're going to become dependent on other people constantly to give them information. Now, you can run into problems with this because then you get people who are not technically experts or qualified to answer, who kind of fall into the category that I listed below of thinking you know everything, but you don't. And that's how misinformation gets spread, and it gets passed down time and time again. And then you play a telephone game over several generations, and you've got stuff like all these rumors coming out like, oh, 1903 is going to blow up in your face, instead of just, well, some might have been heat treated incorrectly. You don't go that far into it. You just get commonly accepted myths. This is a big one for me, and this is a really big pet peeve, which is why a lot of you, if you're a subscriber and all that stuff, I tend to not answer really simple questions in the comments. And you can think I'm an asshole for that, and maybe I am, but it's really just to get you to actually figure out and learn how to do your own research to benefit your collecting hobby and the hobby as a whole, and to get information correct. So this is the number 2 mistake. This is why it made the list. It almost made number 1, but number 1, you're going to see why it's number 1. Number 1 is something that I've done, and a lot of my friends have done, and a lot of beginning collectors have done this, whether they want to admit it or not. It's refinishing military surplus firearms, or refinishing. Basically, it's people that think that if they make it look more pretty, or they make it look better or whatever, that it'll increase the value. Well, it actually has the opposite effect on most things military surplus in general, not just firearms, bayonets, helmets. e-tools, stuff like that. Collectors are going to want it to be as close to original and in as good a shape as possible. That's what the collectors are going to be looking for, most of them. So with this one, you see on the top, it's a nice Persian model 9829 Mauser, but you can see the stock's very shiny. They weren't originally like that. So the person that had it before me actually put polyurethane on it, which I don't care about because, I mean, I bought it as a shooter, which it's an amazing shooter. I have to make a video on that soon. And if I go to sell it, I know I can get my money back at least. But here's the thing, by him doing that, a rifle in this condition that would normally retail for about $800, $700 to $800, is now only like a $500 rifle. I don't have a problem with that. It's a nice, fills a hole in the collection. I think it's one of the best Mauser rifles ever made, which is why I wanted one. So not a big deal, but if I were to ever go to resell this, I'm not gonna be making a lot because a collector's gonna look at it and be like, nope, stock's poly, I'm not interested most of the time, like a serious collector. So, but anyway, this one on the bottom is another story of, I was 19, this is my first 9130 ever purchased from AIM Surplus. I think I was still in Iraq when I bought this one. Got it online, I had it shipped to a friend that had an FFL. It's a nice 1925-ish Chev, it's got extra Dragoon, and it's a cool shooter. Well, I didn't like the shellac on it, so I decided, oh, it's only 80 bucks, you know, so I decided to strip the shellac off and put some cheap, shitty stain from Fleet Farm on it. And then a couple years later, I sanded it again because it was disgustingly colored. It was kind of that purple tint. And decided to use a pine tar turpentine finish, which I think looks a little better. However, it's not the original finish. So to a collector, this rifle is not going to be worth nearly as much as an unmessed with one. I'll probably never get rid of this one though, because it was my first, 9130 ever, and it's got a cool story behind it. But I mean, nevertheless, if I were to have to sell it to pay the mortgage or something, I'm not going to get as much money for this as I would for one that's not messed with. So that's a big mistake. When in doubt with anything military surplus or old or historical, don't ever refinish it or clean it, which a lot of people go overboard with cleaning something. Collectors don't mind patina. Collectors don't mind normal age and wear and tear. So when in doubt, just don't mess with it. Don't try to make it look nice or don't try to make it look more pretty unless you're fine with losing money on it and ruining, the original history of the rifle and kind of altering that. So that's just my general kind of position on refinishing anything military surplus. I just almost fell into that trap 20 years after I started collecting this shit. Got a German helmet a couple weeks ago and I made a video and was going to refinish the paint when it doesn't need it. Definitely, thanks to the YouTube viewers, they caught me and were like, you are dumb, what are you doing? And I was like, oh shit, you were correct. So it's not just necessarily a newbie mistake, but I did it a lot more when I was a noob. That's why I kind of put this at number one in the video, because that's a really long-term effect as well as all these other factors, these 5 mistakes that I've personally made, my friends have made, other collectors have made. So I just figured maybe this could help you out, not make it, 1 or 2 of the mistakes that myself and others have in the hobby, to make it a little bit more enjoyable. Again, if you're interested in watching that series, go check out the playlists on my channel. It's called Military Surplus Firearm Collecting. It's cool. It should be going on. I'm just kind of, again, spreading the word and talking about my friends' mistakes and mine and what actually has worked for us and all that stuff to kind of give you a little bit of tip to navigate the wild and wonderful world of military surplus firearm collecting. So that's about all I've got. Sorry the video went so long, but a couple of these things needed a little bit more context to make sense if you're, just watching this for the first time. Anyway, if you like this video and you enjoy my work, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon. It's $1 a month, $5 a month or more gets you into the Discord server, which is pretty fun. A lot of cool information's exchanged there. We have some fun, play some games and stuff like that. It's just a really cool place to hang out. And yeah, it also, what Patreon does is it's just a way to crowdfund. It's an easy way for me to be able to keep track of it and everything. Crowdfund the channel so I can make content that I normally wouldn't be able to with, just paying out of pocket, because this hobby does get really expensive. And I do like making videos that are educational and stuff, but a lot of them get kind of pricey. So Patreon just allows me to kind of expand out to do things I normally wouldn't be able to do, like helmet ballistic tests, body armor, which I'm going to try to get into. And then making cool videos about these. Patreon's allowed me to get a couple cool military surplus rifles to go out and make videos. Ammo costs money. You get the picture. So yeah, if you consider doing that, link is in the description. If you can't support the channel financially, I totally get that. It's totally fine. I just appreciate you watching. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.